Hey, good morning, everybody. Vince Devall with Eagle Homes, powered by eXp Realty. I'm here with Brad Brewer, there with the lovely glasses and the baby blue today. And then Adam Zeman with A to Z Mortgage. Say, welcome. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
So we're here
Morning.
for Wednesday morning podcast. And so what we're going to talk about is house hacking. Many of you do not know what house hacking is, never heard of it. So I kind of wanted to talk about it and share ways to what I call house hacking. So
Vince, can I ask some questions on this, Vince?
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
First of all, you got to tell everybody in the audience, what is house hacking?
So good question, Brad. And yeah, that starts us off. House hacking is pretty simple. It's where you buy, a primary residence and you rent out part of the space. So some people will buy a single family, say a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home, or even a 2-bath home, and rent out a bedroom to a friend, maybe $500, $700 for that room in shared space. The next thing we see happen is people buying a duplex, triplex, or quadplex, and then renting out the other half, living in one side of the duplex and renting out the other half to kind of help them offset that mortgage and create income. So that's a little bit of house hacking. House hacking also, you could, buy a single family residence and park your RV. I've heard of people parking their RV in the driveway and renting out the full house. So that's kind of what house hacking is. Helps reduce your overall cost.
Okay. So is this something investors do? Or is this something I can do if I'm not a real estate expert?
Oh, it's for anybody. And I think it's right now in today's market and economy, I think it's a great way for people to get into, their first home. Just talked to a potential first-time home buyer on Monday this week where we started talking house hacking. She's like, that's a great idea. Like, I can rent out a room, or I can rent out, buy a duplex, rent out the other half. So it's a great way for people to get into something that is, that kind of fits their needs. And Adam can kind of elaborate on how it works from the mortgage side of things, but great way for people to get into it and buy a home and kind of help reduce their costs. So it's for everybody. You don't have to be an investor. You don't have to, have a ton of cash. And Adam, maybe you can elaborate on the mortgage side of things. How does that usually work, from the mortgage side of things?
So a couple different ways. So let's just talk about, I think duplex, because for me, that's probably the most common way that people will do like a house hack. They buy their first home, maybe they're a little younger and they're like, I don't want to pay the whole rent. So they're going to buy a duplex, and typically, overwhelmingly, the most popular way to do that is with a FHA mortgage. And the reason is because it still requires just a minimum 3.5% down, where if you go with other mortgage types, they're going to require more percentage down to buy that duplex. Most people that are going to buy that type of home for their first home, they might not have a ton of money to put down. So that's overwhelmingly the most popular way to purchase a home like that for your first time or subsequent time or whatever. So what's so cool about it is you can use the 3.5% down to put down. You can get that gifted from a relative. You can, 401k, whatever, you can, investment money. But then the vacant side, okay, so let's just say in this situation it's vacant, okay, well, there's no one that lives in it, and you're going to live in the other half, you're going to purchase it. You can use up to 75% of the rental income from the other side. Now you're probably going to say, like, how do I know what the rental income is? You can either produce a lease, maybe you already have someone that's going to live there, or when we do the appraisal, we can order a rent schedule, and it will tell us like the average rents for that area, and that's how we're going to calculate it. What's good right now is rents are so much higher than I think they've ever been. I don't remember a time in my life where they've been this high. So let's just say you're doing some quick math. Let's say you buy a $200,000 or $300,000 duplex, and let's just say your mortgage, I know rates just went up, so let's just say your mortgage is, I don't know, $1,900, okay? You might be able to get, depending on the duplex, you might be able to get 12 to 13 to 15 to $1,800. You might be able to get enough to cover the whole mortgage payment, depending on where you purchase that duplex, what area it is, how big it is. A lot goes into that. So I think it's a great way. I personally did it. I did it in a way where I purchased one a long time ago, and well, about 4 years ago. And I got it to a point where it covered my whole rent or my whole mortgage payment and some. So after moving out of that place, now both sides basically, now you're kind of cash flowing. And that's maybe another conversation that you can go into when you start investing and actually cash flowing. But it's a great way to start your first home, and it's a great way to start investing. I think a lot of things get accomplished. You might find that you don't want to be a landlord because not everybody does. Okay. I personally, owning duplexes isn't for me. I'm more like own multi-units and then, have someone manage them. But it's a good way of figuring that out about yourself. You don't want to be locked into a bunch of units and figure out you don't like this. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And hey, Adam, kind of to go off of what you're talking about, I want to share this graph that I kind of put together, and I think this is going to help people understand really what we're talking about here when it comes to this. So let me just pull this up real quick and I'll share the screen. Let me know if you guys can see it all right. You guys can see it. So, back to what, Adam, you were talking about here, and great example of 300,000, because, without you looking at this graph that I just shared, 300,000, I did 4% down. Just it's an easier number to do math on. $1,900 would be your interest and principal at 7%. We talked about interest rates going up and whatnot. So you're looking at $1,900, and I did rental income. The average rental income in Southeast Wisconsin right now, just so everyone knows, for a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house is $1,700 a month. It's insane. Like it has skyrocketed in the last year to 2 years, the price of rentals. So for someone that's looking at the House Act, great opportunity to take advantage of higher rentals, right? So let's say you did your rental income of $1,500. You now are only out of pocket $416 in this scenario. Where if you bought a single family at $250,000, same, and remind you, this does not include your property tax or insurance, just some rough math. You're out of pocket almost $1,600 a month. So let's, what do you want to be out of pocket? $1,600 or $400, right? I mean, let's all think about that. I'd rather lose $400 at the casino than $1,600 at the casino, right? Because renting is like going to the casino. You're just throwing money at somebody. So if you have someone throwing that money at you, you'd rather take that $400 loss. So yeah, no, I think that's a good tie-in to, what you can save and how to reinvest that money. I'm going to stop sharing this real quick. So yeah. So I think that's just a great way. And on that graph, I did a triplex too. And duplex, talking about that duplex, I used a $300,000 price because I've seen duplexes in, Southeast Wisconsin, Lake Geneva, Kenosha, Racine, Twin Lakes, going from $250,000 to $300,000. Maybe a little higher depending on what they have for rent coming in already. And I'm glad you touched on that, Adam, because I didn't know how it would work if the one side was vacant. So that's good to know that you said 75%?
75% of the rental income. So that will offset your payment, and it will offset your debt to income ratio. So you could get in a position where you might not qualify for the same house for a $250,000 purchase, but you'll qualify for maybe the $300,000 purchase, just because that rental income offsets it shows as income to offset and reduce that debt to income ratio. I'd like to add too, I think what's really, if you start getting real creative with this, so I've looked at some really nice side-by-sides where each unit may be like 12 to 16 to 1,800 square foot. Some of them are really nice where you're getting like 3 bedrooms. You can rent one of those or two of those out to your buddies or your friends. And I don't know about you, but if even if it's your friend, you're probably getting maybe 500, 600 bucks a month for rent. And you could see where that will really offset your payment at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And those side by sides, much nicer. Usually those townhome type units, much nicer. Probably can, ask for a little more money and whatnot. So that's a good point. So Adam, do they use 75% because of possible vacancy rate and turnover and things like that? Is that why it's 75%?
That's a great question. I actually don't know the answer to why they use that 75% is the number.
I mean, that kind of makes sense. It kind of takes your average, and then if it takes you a month to fill it, someone leaves after a year, it takes you another month or two to, repair and fill it if need be. And to your point, like if you don't like managing the tenants themselves, you use a third party company that you pay a small fee to collect the rent, send you a check. I know I personally use a third party to manage my properties. I don't take the phone calls. I don't put tenants in it. I just collect a check every 3 months. It's a great way to do that part of things, especially if you don't want to handle the rental side and the tenant side of things. Scheduling a plumber to go out there when someone dumps grease down the sink. You're like, boy, you are not real smart. Pardon my French to those that have done it. And so we talked about the money it saves you. What do you do with that money? Over time, that money, if you play your cards right, you stash it away. Adam, how soon could somebody get out of a duplex and buy and use that as a rental and buy a new single family? Could they do that? Could I live in a duplex for a year and then say, okay, hey, I'm just going to rent out the other side and buy a single family and still get a 3.5% because now this is my primary residence?
So you can do a year.
First of all. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not crossing lines with legal.
No, a year, and you can only have one FHA mortgage, so you're not going to get 3.5% down. Okay, so that's something you need to think about. You might be able to get 3% down for conventional for your second home, like that's a possibility, but that just all depends on the person. I've seen people and I've worked with people that did do the progression. They actually bought one duplex, lived in it for a year, bought a second duplex, lived in it for a year. There's a point where you got to kind of stop doing that, where an underwriter is going to be like, okay, well, enough is enough. But you definitely got a 2 or 3 of them in you can do. So if you really truly are younger and you want to really give a go at this investment thing, you can get 3 duplexes in maybe like 3.5 years. And then, I don't know, you can start talking about maybe you sell them all and buy a bigger investment property. Maybe you keep them all. Maybe you have someone, run them for you, or who knows? At that point, you're going to have more options, and you're going to have equity in them, even in this market. So.
Right. Yeah.
Hey,
I think.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. One of the questions I have, or that I get a question, or I've had questions in the past about, is using that rental income as part of your income. So I know that I know that after a year, and then you go to finance another property, you can use that rental income that you're getting on either one or multiple units. What about in the first year?
I'd have to sort of officially review the guidelines, but there is a point where if it hasn't been enough time for you to do your taxes, there is a period where you can still use that rental income. And I have to kind of completely review those guidelines, but from my recollection, if it's been less than a year, then there's a case where you can use it. But if it's more than a year, you should have filed it on taxes. If it's not on taxes, where you cannot use it.
Okay.
And I've definitely run across people where either they haven't filed it on taxes, or they didn't file them correctly. They didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't do TurboTax correctly, and a lot of the deductions or the insurance isn't in there correctly, and it throws off what you can use for that rental income.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
And Brad, just to kind of touch on that too, doing it in the past, I feel I'm not a CPA or a tax person, but it's important that if this is something someone wants to do, they're tracking everything accordingly. And that's, honestly, one of the reasons I use a third party to manage my properties is they're tracking the income, they're tracking the expenses. I get a broken down expense report at the end of the year for tax purposes, and I give that to my accountant. So, some people are like, oh man, if I'm renting it for $1,500 and I just get cash, maybe I don't have to claim that because, hey, Uncle Sam's not going to know about it. But, now you're setting yourself up for failure if your long-term goal is to, use this property in a year to buy another property. So, there's some value to claiming that. And I highly recommend if it's something you want to do, talk to a CPA, figure out how to maximize your deductions, maximize expenses, sign up an LLC, things like that, ways to protect yourself. And then if that's what you want to do, because, ultimately, if you don't track it correctly, it's really hard for Adam or other lenders to kind of use that income and say, hey, yeah, they really did get $1,500 a month for a full year, 18 grand or whatever that works out to be, 15 grand. It's really hard for you guys to say, yes, we got that income. So I think it's very important that people track their income and expenses properly if this is something that they want to do for a long period of time, right?
Yep.
So
your schedule, make sure you just fill out the Schedule E, which is that's what you do, the real estate portion of your taxes, and it's more important to just make sure you track your what you spend on the house. That's what's going to get you to lower taxable situation. But again, to your point, then you won't be able to use as much income for the next purchase. So it's a catch-22. You got to think it out, like what's more important, taking all the deductions right now or having more income for my next purchase.
Yep.
Again, a good question for a CPA.
Yep. Yeah. Let's wash our hands of that.
Yeah.
So Vince, a lot of what we're talking about here seems to me like there's some short-term stuff, but there's some long-term planning here.
Yeah.
How do we as agents help our clients do this?
Well, I think the first thing is having that conversation, finding out what their goals are, right? We want to build that relationship, find out what their long-term goals are. And I'm going to use my Monday conversation with a buyer. Through the conversation, and all of a sudden we get to house hacking, and she's like, "What's that?" Oh my goodness! Yes, that's what I want to do. I want to build a portfolio. I want to grow, my long-term investments to where I have passive income. And honestly, the conversation wasn't set exactly like that, but that's where we got to. So I think it's important understanding what your buyer's long-term goals are, and then helping them do that. So finding properties that fit the rent criteria. I mean, finding a duplex per se that's run down needs, $50,000 worth of work. There's only 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and it's selling for $400,000. Isn't going to give them the rental income they're going to need. So as agents, we need to be able to do our due diligence and find them properties, understand what the rental income in the area is going for, and getting them and showing them those, right?
Right.
And then making sure that they start talking to the right people. I think Brad and I talk a lot of times about we want to be the go-to for our buyers. We want to be the go-to person if they say, hey, Vince, Brad, I need a plumber. Who do you recommend? Okay, we recommend so-and-so. Or we need a painter. Who do you recommend? Who do you recommend for a CPA? We can point them in the right direction, give them a couple options so that they can make an informed decision for them and their family or whatever the situation might be. So I think it's building that relationship and making sure we understand fully what their long-term goals are, and then help them along the way and say, follow up, 6 months, Brad, where are you at? How's it going with the duplex? Are you enjoying it? Are you still thinking in a year you want to find something else and fully rent this out? So having those conversations and following up and staying in front of mind so that they see properties that are maybe good investments. And then, you find places that you wouldn't mind holding on to that rental for a longer period of time, right? We don't want to find a rental in an area that we don't want to hold on to, or roll it into the next one. And that leads into another conversation about 1031 exchanges and things like that if they don't hold on to it long enough, and making sure that they're moving the money properly if they decide to sell that unit.
Right. So just like anything else, we always encourage our clients, whether it's their personal home, an investment property. I think people a lot of times just think that us realtors are here like right in the immediate need. We're not. We like to be involved with long-term planning, even if you're not buying something for years out. So to everybody out there, do not hesitate. You're just want to just brainstorm some stuff. We're here. Set up appointment. They're always free. I always say that they're always free. No one ever charges for this stuff. It's no different than a financial advisor, except for just real estate advice. Your financial advisor doesn't charge you every time you go in the office. They're there to advise you, to help you create your wealth. We're here to create, work with you on your short-term and your long-term real estate goals. And then I do have to jump off early today, Vince, but I got one more question. I think it was touched on briefly earlier, but maybe expand a little bit. I want to be a real estate investor. I want to have income properties. I have zero interest in being a landlord.
Right.
What do I do?
It's easy. You find a third party to manage it from start to finish. There's companies out there that charge you a percentage of whatever your rental income is, and they track everything. They'll help get you tenants in. They'll screen the tenants, do credit checks, background checks. They will, collect rent, schedule repairs as tenants, as something happens. And then, they'll do the final walkthrough if the tenant moves out and get your next tenant in. So, for the peace of mind, 10% of my, if I'm $1,500 a month, $150 for peace of mind of not getting a call at 4 p.m. on a Sunday when the Bears are playing the Packers, I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. And then I can make that decision, and if my agent calls me and says, hey, Vince, the basement's flooding over at your unit, what do you want to do? If I feel like going out there and playing in the rain, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'll be like, hey, call the plumber, send him over. I know it's going to be an emergency call, but for peace of mind, for someone else to have to manage that, it's definitely worth it in my eyes. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, no. Hey, Adam, anything else? I think this is really good conversation today.
Yeah, probably one thing that before I purchased, an investment duplex, what do you do for lawn maintenance and snow removal? Let's just say you move out and now it's 100% a rental. You're no longer there. What do you do with that? Like how much does that cost? Or do you do it yourself? Or kind of back to what you were talking about as far as a management company, because those two things can be kind of pricey sometimes.
Yeah. I personally, my examples are both of my duplexes, the tenants manage snow removal for their own driveway. Mm-hmm. Both of my units don't have sidewalks, so they don't have to worry about sidewalk maintenance, just their driveway. So if they can't get in their driveway, that's on them. Mm-hmm. But then grass, one of the unit pays less rent a month. So maybe $50 a month, $25 a month, whatever it might be, less per month to, cut the grass and take care of the outside. And it has seemed to work just fine for me where they do it. Otherwise, you find a management company that comes and cuts grass once a week or something, or once every 2 weeks, mm-hmm. Depending on how often the yard we rain or gets water, whatever it might be. But, it's definitely an expense that you have to consider when you're looking at the big picture.
So I do the same thing. Like I just had the tenants do it and I wrote that into the lease. And
yep.
A lot of times people are happy to do that to get a discount on their rent.
Right. If you say, hey, Adam, you're going to pay $1,450 instead of $1,500 every month. All I'm going to ask you cut the grass a couple times a week. And if it snows, shovel the driveway, the sidewalk, right? You're going to be like, well, that's not too bad. And then you hope it doesn't rain a lot and we don't get a lot of snow. And you're like,
True story.
Oh, yeah. So, but and that goes into a lot of things. Like as a landlord or an owner of a duplex, are you paying for the Wi-Fi or the water. Maybe water's only coming in through one source and it's split in the duplex and you're stuck paying for it. Something to keep in mind when you're talking about your expenses. Electricity is typically separate, but just something to keep in mind. Also Wi-Fi. Are you going to supply Wi-Fi for both units? I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. You can, then you don't have to worry about it being on that unit side, and they can pull Wi-Fi from you or whatnot. But yeah, it's definitely things to consider when you're looking at the expenses for a duplex.
What about pets? How do you look at that? I mean, pets can cause a lot of damage to a house.
Yep.
I mean, some people, how do you kind of approach that when you're thinking about this?
It's, I think whatever you do, the best way to do it is stick to your guns. So if you say, no mice, absolutely nothing that resembles a mice. A rat, a chihuahua. No, I'm just kidding. Chihuahuas are mice. But you stick to that. So if you say no dogs over 50 pounds, then if you got someone who goes, hey, I have a Great Dane, and I'm sorry, my rules are no dogs over 50 pounds, right?
Sure.
But if they have a lab that all of a sudden is getting old and overweight and hits over 50 pounds, big deal. But stick to it, and then it's a deposit of a non-refundable deposit, because those animals are going to ruin something.
Right.
Maybe you got hardwood floors scratching it. If it's cats peeing on carpet or dogs peeing on carpet, non-refundable deposit of whatever you decide on, and then so much more per month. So for me, it's extra $50 per animal per month, up to 2 dogs. So it's, in my eyes, an extra $100 a month, $1,200 a year, plus their non-refundable deposit, should be able to repair or fix anything that they've really damaged. Hopefully, they didn't tear up the whole carpet on the second floor or piss in every room. But at the same time, it's a gamble you're going to have to take. Otherwise, you just say no pets. And there's enough people out there that need rentals with no pets.
No pet. What's a good non-refundable deposit amount to start out with?
I'd say between $150 and $250.
Okay.
I think what that in their mind says, do I really want this animal or don't I want this animal?
Right.
And, if they're going, man, I'm giving up $250 to have this dog in my house. Do I love the house that much? Am I willing to take care of it that much? And am I, willing to pay an extra $250 non-refundable at the beginning of my lease?
Right.
Some people are like, yeah, you know what? It's worth it. It's, I love the location. It's got a fenced in yard. It's what I'm looking for size wise, quality wise. They're gonna be like, yeah, I know my dog's good. I know my dog doesn't piss and crap in the house, or my cat doesn't miss the litter box, right? So yeah.
How much do people put down for a security deposit usually?
1 month's rent. So typically about 1 month's rent. I've heard of some landlords doing first and last month's rent. First month or security deposits 1 month's rent, but you also have to pay first and last month's rent, because the experience, one of my earlier years experience was I only had to pay first month's rent. They knew they were moving out in July. Well, at the end of July, I never got July's rent. They're like, oh, I'm moving out in July, and I didn't pay July's rent. And it's hard to evict people, so you got to take that in consideration. So some landlords are first and last month's rent at the beginning, plus 1 month security deposit.
So that's like 3 months rent almost from the get-go. Gotcha.
So you're talking $4,500. We're a third of the way to a down payment.
Exactly. That's kind of what I'm getting at there.
Like I said earlier, it's like throwing money at the dealer at a casino. That's kind of what it feels like at times. But there's a need, and there's a need for, we're talking on landlords and tenants and things like that. There's a need for good landlords out there, right? There's one of my tenants that, I went over there to fix something because I couldn't get a handyman over there. And it was something simple. And they were so grateful that I was over there to fix it, that afternoon. They're like, oh my gosh. I remember calling the old landlord, and it'd be a week and have to call him 3 more times, just, and if if you take care of your tenants, just like your employees, you take care of them, they're going to take care of you. They're going to pay on time. They're going to take care of the place. They're going to be respectful of it. But if you don't give two craps about your tenants, they're not going to care what they do to your place.
Right.
So, kind of keep that in mind. Like, tenants are kind of your employees, except they're paying you to work and live there.
Right. I think that's so true. Take pride in your place, treat them good. You might have a bad experience from here, here and there, but largely if you approach it that way, I think you'll have a good people that stay there for long periods of time.
Yeah. Yep. The challenge becomes too, we're talking about, and then we're going to cut off here because I have another call I've taken 12 minutes, but the then challenge becomes is rental rates lately have like skyrocketed, right? Like, how do you get in a position to say, hey, Adam, you were paying $1,000 a month rent, but right now I can rent the same unit out for $1,500. Like, how do you, like, at what point in time do you say, I need to take you from 1,000 to I'll compromise, I'll take you to 1,300 instead of 1,500? Like, where, how do you do that? That it's really hard.
It is hard. I literally just did that. So yeah. I started the conversation with what I could rent it for, and there's a big difference from what I could rent it to what it was being rented. I explained that things have gone up, and then I just said I don't want to put you in a bad position, and that's not the type of person I am, and I just said what can you guys afford? Let's start there. I don't want to put you out. And what they said was a number that I was okay with. It's not what I want, but I'm okay with it.
Right. But, back to probably good tenants, if they weren't good tenants, you probably wouldn't have had that conversation, right?
No, I probably would have been like,
Yeah, hey, peace out.
Yeah.
It's up. Lease is up in a month. Good luck. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, good tenants. They probably take care of the place. No, you probably don't get a lot of calls from them. It works out that way, right?
Exactly.
So, a little bit of balance there for you. So
exactly.
But yeah, great conversation today. This is a lot of fun. Let us know how we can help. Vince Devall with Eagle Homes, and I'm with Adam Zeman with A to Z Mortgage Team. We're here every week on Wednesday at 9 a.m. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help you with any questions, comments, concerns you might have when it comes to real estate and lending. So
yes, sir. Thanks. Everybody have a great week.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.